Okay, so the next topic which we are going to learn about is client server architecture. And basically, here important things for us to know is that server is a computer. Server is a computer which provides the service, right? So basically, it's a kitchen in the example which we have taken in the API. Provide the service. So it's a kitchen, and a computer is a device, a client is a computer or device that uses the service. So basically, it's a customer in a hotel example or in a restaurant example which you have taken. So basically, client requests the server and a server responds to client. So this is a very simple and very powerful architecture which we are going to learn. Uh, yeah, so in that context, now we should know that there are certain things which we should know in a client server architecture. There are important things to know. Client always request. Server can never initiate request. It will only server will always respond. Will always respond to the request. Okay, so this is very this is always, this holds true always, and that completes one complete cycle. So if I initiate a request, there will be a response from the server. Now, with that in mind, what would be the response? So this response, it can be a success or a failure. So these are the two possibility, but definitely the server will respond to client irrespective whether it's a success or a failure. Now, to get an idea about what I mean by success and failure, uh, so let's consider one example. So there is a library and there is a student. Now the student is searching for some book. So she'll go to library and ask the librarian, "Can you find this book for me?" So the librarian goes and search on the bookshelves wherever the books are there. Now, what are the two possibilities here? Either he finds the book or he will not find the book, right? So that is something, this is success, this is failure, and that is something we should know that. So the server will always respond, client will always request. Now, how they are going to do in between it, that is something we'll use something called APIs. That's something called APIs, and here we are going to use REST APIs. So it's a representational state transfer API, and if this the underlying protocol or the underlying protocol, if this API, if the API protocol is HTTP, then it's called RESTful API. Okay, so that's something different. Now, REST I will be covering in the upcoming sessions, but for now we should just think REST API as somebody is a way to request some data and get some response on that data, right? Uh, so now this can be any web application. So client can be any web application, right? So it can be any web application. It can be any web application. Oh, sorry, for example, let's say client can be a web browser. Browser. It can be like Edge. It can be a Mozilla, Chrome. This can be anything. Okay, so web browser, and the server can be a web server like Nginx or something of that sort, right? So this is the clear software example, if I say. So this is how this client and servers are defined. Okay. So basically, it will request what it will request. It will request a web page, or if it is a single page application, then it will request some JSON data. It will request some data and will send you in a JSON format or something of that. So that there are different post get methods and stuff like that. We'll discuss that in upcoming session. But for now, we should know that yeah, this web browser is a client and server is like web server, which is like Nginx or some other server, Tomcat or some Apache Tomcat or some other server, which we have HTTP, HTTPS. Uh, that is something which will be there. Now, this client server architecture is very popular. So this is popular because there is something called separation of concern. There is called separation of concern. Now, what this mean? So now this separation of concern is basically divides the responsibilities. So if I talk about the responsibilities of a client and a server, okay? So client and server. So what is server is responsible? So it's responsible for providing service, right? And client is responsible for first requesting service and then using the service. Okay. So this separation allows basically the scalability of this particular architecture, and also we can independently develop the client as well as the server. So there is no dependence. So client and there is a clean separation we can see. They have nothing to know. So the independent, they are basically independent, right? So just the responsibilities are very much clear. Client, the server will is responsible of providing the service, and client is responsible for first requesting and then using the service. So yeah, I think that's all for this session. I hope you now understand the APIs and the client server architecture. Then in the next video, we'll start learning about the Django.